Also Brand and Joe Rogan discuss yoga, ayahuasca, and the Ultimate Warrior.
You know, when I was a kid, I used to watch a lot of WWE. Back then, they used to call it the WWF, but I guess allegedly Vince McMahon cashed a bunch of checks that were meant for the World Wildlife Fund. The checks were made out to WWF, the World Wildlife Fund. But anyway, you know, the Ultimate Warrior recently died. The autopsy said it was heart failure. His YouTube channel is really something, you know. A lot of people think pro wrestling is just fake. You know, they do pull the punches, stuff like that. But that doesn't mean it's not extremely difficult and dangerous. I mean, these guys get injured all the time.
I mean, these guys are gigantic dudes, and they're throwing each other. I mean, people don't realize the abuse that people's bodies take on pro wrestling. The reason why a lot of those guys get hooked on painkillers, pro wrestling is one of the most difficult things to do in all of show business, even in all of sports. Even though it's not really a sport, I mean, per se, there's predetermined outcomes, it still requires an incredible amount of athleticism, an incredible amount of work. These guys are on the road like every night. They're on the road several nights a week, performing shows, throwing each other through the air. They have to come up with new, more spectacular moves to satisfy people. That's why they're jumping off ropes, they're jumping off the top of the fucking cage, and they're flipping and doing this, and you grab my ankles, and I'm gonna throw you through the air, and then you land on your back, and then I jump through my air, and I flip, and I land on you. They fucking bonk heads and shit all the time. These guys are getting knocked the fuck out in practice. What do? Well, put some ice on it and see you tomorrow. And tomorrow you better get your fucking moves down if you want to keep your WWE contract.
Now on Ultimate Warrior's YouTube page, you know, he always talks about being motivated, about not having fear, right? You know, I've noticed this widespread consensus that ayahuasca and DMT, they're really good treatments for things like fear and anxiety.
I think there's this growing understanding of all the factors that encompass a healthy person, and how many of them have to do with your conception of reality. How many of them have to do with the way you think. How many of them have to do with how you view your environment. If you view your environment as this hostile, stressful, antagonizing, angry, negative place, you'll get sicker. And your body it doesn't know what to do. It's fighting it constantly, and you're in a battle, and you're all stressed out, and you're susceptible to all sorts of things. And there, in that sense, there's a direct physical connection between psychedelic experiences and improved health.
Right.
And that's something that people really need to understand. And I think once that catches root, once people grasp that concept and understand the incredible pressure alleviating properties. Like, I can remember one of the first times I ever did DMT. The day afterwards, like, I had this completely different view of the world that I had to sort of apply now. All these other, and like figure out, like, do all these factors that I've considered as being important, how many of them am I going to throw out? Like, the way I described it is like my computer rebooted and now only has one folder on the desktop. And that folder is labeled my old bullshit. And so now I have to open this folder and go, okay, how much of this is valid?
Right.
Like, Jesus, this is my whole thought process. This is my whole mind. This is how I interface with reality. Unfortunately, some of it made its way back in, you know, and then, you know, I had to do another trip, you know, a few months later, and then I threw out more of it. And it was a sort of a deliberate process of reevaluation.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's like you were trapped in the folder, but now you've escaped the folder.
What I feel is that it's made a whole new realm accessible to me. Like, now when I'm performing live with an audience, I have a sense of genuine communion. I have a different relationship with time now. I feel like I'm very much in the moment. I mean, before, I've always been very comfortable with spontaneity and improvisation, but now I'm different. I have different tempos. I feel accessible to me. I feel like when I watch like footballers, English football, that I enjoy, they have extra second on the ball. This is a thing you can observe. Like it's like they seem like they've got time to think, to pick the right pass. And now, like what I feel like through my meditative and yogic practice is that I feel more relaxed and I feel more centered. And as well, put simply, that it's meaningless. But then there's a real relief in that. It's not serious. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know, I'm trying to infuse every aspect of my life with it. You know, like sort of whether it's performance and how I treat people. I'm trying to live like it, moment to moment, authentically. But like, you know, like I don't take stuff so seriously because I feel like we live on the tip of the iceberg. I think there's so much. I think if we had different senses, we'd be aware of whizzing sprites and forces and energies and lightning and so I think like, you know, sort of worrying about some pinhead of material existence don't seem that important.
It's fascinating that ayahuasca is the one that's been, you know, in the forefront. When mushrooms are so damn easy to grow, anyone could essentially get a hold of some spores and start cooking them in your basement like really quickly. Whereas ayahuasca is probably the most complex combinatory beverage that we know of as far as like psychedelic brews. It's the one that requires the most knowledge. It's the one that requires the most care and creating, and it's easier to extract DMT than it is to create ayahuasca. I mean, get all the plants and brew it together and know someone who really knows what they're doing, how to cook up a good batch. It's weird that that's the one.
I don't know, if people are happy, they're happy, they don't need it. If there's not a problem, there's not a problem. But I think if people have some sort of yearning or dissatisfaction or some itchy irritability, then it might be because they're not looking in the right direction for a solution, and that they should look within, and that within them there is a limitless, infinite capacity for bliss through connection to higher things, that as long as you're looking for happiness for yourself, you're never going to be. So I'd take on some sort of mild form of yoga and be loving and accepting of yourself and not be sort of comparative or like not use it as a reference. I don't think there's anything else. I've tried it. If the answer was McDonald's and Starbucks and blowjobs, we'd all be alright. You know, they're on every street corner, not the blowjobs. It's only a matter of time. But like, you know, for me, it's that we have no option. We have no option. Unless you're alright. Because I do meet some people that they seem alright with it. They kind of, we are living in a material world and I'm a material girl. Some people will dig it, you know, but for me, you know, it's like, I sensed always, no one gave me the grammar or the information or the grid. You know, like no one said, because if you grew up in Essex, in England, no one's going to say to you, this is an illusion, don't try and... People just say to you a version of get a job, fuck women, be good at football, be good at fighting. You know, people won't tell you that stuff is not gonna work.
I think we're also kind of trapped in this weird world of our creations as far as technology as well. I think that technology, just like corporations, just like anything that sort of becomes a force that's constantly growing, it becomes, it has a certain self-preservation aspect to it. And I think that we're completely connected to the idea of constant innovation and constantly improving technology. And that also has completely connected us to materialism, because materialism is the real driving force behind constant innovation. If we all just looked at our laptops and said, I'm good, are you good? There's no need to, we can call Apple right now. Hey, these are fucking great. Stop right there.
Right.
Like you literally don't need to improve internet speed. You don't need to improve the laptop. Everything's wonderful. Let's stop all this and let's move on to something else. Well, that's not what everybody wants. Everybody wants the newest, latest, greatest, fastest dual video processor. I want a screen that rolls and folds and...
So cumulatively, the more people have access to this vital information, the better society will be. What's all that information, Eddie, that when they have people meditating, crime drops, not just for the individual, but for the community also, because of that interconnection. I don't think people should be excluded because they're bourgeois, but I think, like, you know, yeah, you're right, there's certain communities or nations or cultures that probably don't have as direct access to some of these ideas. And I suppose that we must make this information, this technology, these techniques, these ideas accessible, because they work better than a lot of things we're trying instead. That's my experience. I really tried drugs, I really tried sex, I really tried all those things, and they do not work. So try this. If someone had given me this information when I was 5, It would have been alright. And then again at 10, and then again at 15. If it was part of normal life, the same way is normal life to, hey, try cigarettes, or hey, try booze, or try fucking prostitutes. You know, these ideas are more accessible than the actual solution. And I greeted every one of them false messiahs with open arms, and again gave them opportunity after opportunity. And things that actually work, you sort of treat them, you sort of shirk them off as if, like, you know, as if you owe them money, and you don't, well, no, I've got to avoid yoga and meditation. They've been portrayed quite brilliantly by the mainstream as sort of somehow luxury, but into luxury, or artificial, or superficial. It's absolutely integral. It's absolutely the most authentic thing, more real than any of us.
You said earlier, which is a very controversial but oddly fascinating thing, that plants are the reason why we are human beings today. Why these plant medicines and these psychedelic compounds. Why is that so controversial? I find that to be incredibly amazing when I talk to really intelligent people and I bring that idea up and they dismiss it like almost instantaneously, and I don't understand why. Because I get it that they're connecting the idea of a drug to a bad thing. I get that. But when you want to talk about powerful influences on cognitive thought, is there any more powerful influences on cognitive thought than a psychedelic drug? I don't think there is. I don't understand why that wouldn't be immediately considered at the top of the list, top of the short list, but it's not.
I think that one's reality is a result of your intention and your attention. Mm-hmm. If you're giving your intention and attention to making money, then that's what your universe is going to seem like. Mm-hmm. For the first time in my life, I spent more time meditating and practicing yoga than I do fucking.
Oh, give me stitches, men call me vicious, bitches call me A, B, C, D, licious, which is I get there. Dude, what the fuck you doing, man?